heartbreaking. You're witnessing a very cool female villain, only to learn that her motive boils down to her loving a man. Many such cases.
There is no meme. This is just a threat.
I'm not gonna act like this trope in and of itself is bad. I mean, we've all done crazy things in the name of love, but it's definitely one that's hampered by the fact that it is very common. It's kind of like a get sympathy for free card. You can make any woman villain complex just by making her in love. Easy. Ship it, send it, print it. But just because it's done cheaply a lot of the time doesn't mean there aren't times when it is done pretty well. And Fire Emblem kinda, sorta does this? I'm just gonna look over 3 examples in the series of lady villains motivated by love and kind of explain why I think they do or don't work. Also, please keep in mind, the thoughts expressed in this video are opinions. Therefore, they might differ from your own. And if that happens, that's because you suck and I'm better than you, and everything I think is objectively correct. The first lady I want to talk about is Selena from Fire Emblem 8. She's one of the top 3 generals of the Grotto Empire, and she is in love with her emperor, the once kind-hearted Vigard. At the start of the game, Vigard has invaded his neighboring territory of Renais for absolutely no reason, at least as far as the knights are concerned, and this puts Selena in a tricky spot. Selena believes that there must be some reason for this, so she's willing to listen to whatever Vigard says, and has faith that he's doing the right thing. Her fellow General Glenn is very against Vigard, and though he isn't quite angry enough to yell at the Emperor to his face, he is very quick to show his displeasure for the situation. And the third general, Dussel, is displaying the enlightened centrist opinion. He agrees with Glenn's disdain, but respects Vigard enough that he wants to hear him out like Selena. Sacred Stones makes it a very big point to show that Selena is a very kind woman at heart, even if her loyalty to Vigard is clouding her judgment. At the very beginning of the game, she pays Princess Erica, believing her to be a mercenary, to help deal with the bandits that are attacking Renais' citizens, saying that it's not right that the innocent people should suffer just because their leaders are the ones doing the fighting. And later on in the game, she shows clear disdain for Calic's love of unnecessary violence, chastising him for striking down a soldier who clearly couldn't fight him back. So that begs the question, why would a woman seemingly as kind and understanding as Selena be willing to do so many terrible things in the service of Emperor Vigard? Well, she does have her trademark sad Fire Emblem anime backstory. Selena has one of the most tried and true backstories. She was poor. Her and her family were unable to pay for food, taxes, or anything, and the incoming winter made them afraid that they might have to do some truly desperate things to survive. But Emperor Vigard, knowing damn well that these people could not pay anything in terms of taxes for the country, came to deliver aid and supplies anyway, because he was a kind man and that's just what good people do. Inspired by him literally saving her and her family, Selena went on to enlist and became one of the most trusted knights in Vigard's army. So, for the man who literally saved her life, she's willing to do anything. Even when it's told to her that Vigard has irreversibly changed, she refuses to stand down, dying for the king that was not the man she once knew. Now, on the surface, this doesn't really seem like anything worth talking about. The king did a good deed for her, now she just wants to die for him. It doesn't really sound that compelling. But it's important to note that this is a very real thing that happens. Her love isn't really romantic, though it could be partly, it's more so hero worship. Vigard helped her in a very low time of her life, so now she's willing to overlook any of his transgressions. And that is something that has been happening basically as long as famous people have existed. Sure, I could point to any YouTuber who gets outed as a terrible person and still has waves of people defending them because they made funny videos that help people get through hard times. I could also go through any of the sports stars or rock stars who do horrible things, but no one really cares because they give them things that they truly value. People are willing to overlook a lot if someone did something for them when they needed it most, and Selena is no different. You might be saying, well, yeah, but that doesn't make her a good person. Yeah, you're correct. I'm not trying to argue that Selena's a good person, I'm saying she's a person. What she goes through is something I think at some level everyone goes through. The knowledge that someone that you genuinely loved and helped you out might not be a good person at heart. Selena is sympathetic because we can understand the desire to close your ears and pretend like the horrible things some people do aren't real if they matter that much to you. But we also understand that Selena is a villain because that's not something you should do. Sacred Stones loves having parallels with its heroes and villains. Two people go through the same traumatic experience, but it's what they do after that separates good and evil. For example, Orson lost his wife, and that was the catalyst for him to plunge into despair, ending up a villain that the heroes had to kill to save Renee. Conversely, Garcia lost his wife, but because he was stronger of heart, he dedicated himself to his son and didn't let himself become that insane. Selena learned that her beloved emperor twisted into a man that was no longer the man she knew, but she couldn't accept that and chose to die fighting for him. Dussel lost his entire way of life to this very same emperor's change, but thanks to the actions of Ephraim and Dussel's own strength of will, he was able to get back up and choose to do the right thing, no matter how much of his life he had to throw away to do it. Selena works for me because she's a very good warning sign of what not to do when someone changes. And the sympathy combined with the parallel to Dussel, I think really makes her stand out. She's not necessarily the best villain in Sacred Stones, it's hard to be that when Leon's there, but I still think she does her job well for what her character is trying to do. The next woman I want to talk about is Brunia from Fire Emblem 6, who's in love with the game's main antagonist, Zephiel. Brunia has very few scenes in FE6, but I think the little time that she gets does a really good job portraying her character. Her first appearance has her doubting Zephiel's decision to trust a mysterious hooded girl known as Aiden, which I think is a pretty fair thing to question, but Zephiel says that she needs to have faith in him. And as she leaves, he simply remarks that he's flabbergasted by the things he has to say sometimes. It's a very small interaction, but it makes it clear that Zephiel is just leading her on. He doesn't actually believe in the things he's saying, he's just saying it so that people will listen to him. And I think this makes him an interesting villain because it's well established that Zephiel was once a very kind-hearted and charismatic young man. So here, as this bitter, nihilistic adult, he still carries some of that charisma, and it's working on Brunia. Just as good Fire Emblem characters can have a talk with someone who would have been an enemy and convince them to fight on the side of righteousness, Zephiel can talk to someone who would be good at heart if not for him and convince them to join him in the path of evil. I think that parallel to Roy is a very interesting point to make, even if I probably am really extrapolating a lot out of 2 lines of dialogue. Brunia's next few appearances highlight the fact that both she's a good person at heart and that she has an unwavering loyalty to Zephiel. She shows clear disdain for the backstabbing Etrian nobles, essentially showing content to let them die in the graves they've dug for themselves, and in the game's finale, she's told to leave Zephiel behind and protect Aiden and Zephiel's dream, and though she really resists leaving the man she loves behind, his order supersedes all. But once the player actually goes to fight her, she's kind of realized that Zephiel's dead, Burn's basically done, and that she's going to lose. So she attempts to let all of her soldiers know that they will not be tried for desertion if they leave. Which, I don't know if she's allowed to give that, but you know what, who cares. However, The remaining soldiers of Byrne show the same devotion to Zephiel that she does, refusing to stand down even as their imminent demises stare them in the face. So Brunia decides to be a bit more direct, forcefully discharging any injured people or soldiers that have elderly parents or young children to take care of. Brunia isn't going to let people who have reason to live die here. The only ones dying for Zephiel's dream are the people who have nothing other than it, like her and those remaining few ghosts of Byrne. It's something that she does that other villains of this idea don't do. Selena doesn't try to get the other Knights of Grotto to leave for her own last stand. It's something that separates Brunia from all of these other last stand types, that she does try to help the people flee, and I think that's a really cool idea, and helps add on to the sympathy of her character. Brunia's reason for loving Zephiel is that she's being led on and manipulated, which I don't think I really need to explain why that's something that's easy to understand and sympathize with. Odds are, you watching this video have been manipulated or led on by someone you thought you loved. And it's not a very nice feeling at all, obviously, and it makes it very easy to sympathize with Brunia and relate to her, even more so because she doesn't let other people go down with her. I think it also goes a long way for making Zephiel a more interesting antagonist. By having him manipulate Brunia like this, you can kind of understand why the rest of the soldiers of Byrne feel the same way. They're all drawn in by his charisma and not realizing that he's absolutely insane. And this really does contrast nicely with the fact that talking things out in Fire Emblem usually leads to good results. Brunia is a reminder that the charisma stat in Fallout that can help you peacefully avoid death and destruction is the same charisma stat that can help you convince the Master to kill himself and all of his followers. It really comes down to who uses it. The problem with Brunia is she just doesn't have enough scenes. I wish we could get 1 or 2 more scenes of she and Zephiel talking one-on-one to really help sell this, but she only appears like 3 times in the entire game. But still, for the little time she has, I think she does a pretty good job of showing off a pretty interesting character. Lastly, I want to cover Ishtar from Fire Emblem 4, who is in love with Emperor Julius, a young man possessed by the dark god Lopter, who is going around hunting and grooming children into being the perfect servants to him. Now you might be wondering why I went in reverse order. Why am I ending this video with the woman who started the trope? This is because if I began this video by saying that I think Ishtar sucks, you'd already be beating me to death with hammers. I think Ishtar is a good example in showing how you can't just slap on something to make someone more sympathetic without actually showing it. Because Julius and Ishtar really suffer from telling and not showing. Julius will, in front of Ishtar, to Ishtar no less, talk about the delight that he takes in hunting children and turning them into slaves for the Lopterian Empire. It's not like Vigard or Zephiel, where the ladies can have some air of not understanding their true motives, which gives them the benefit of the doubt. Julius is clearly saying what he intends to do. Now, you could remark that he's possessed, and that is true, but why is Ishtar in love with Julius? The answer? I don't know. Julius as a character basically doesn't exist. We're not given any time with him as himself, he's always Lopter. With Vigard, we had a whole story of what he did for Selena. With Zephiel, we know he's leading her on. With Julius, they want us to feel bad for him, and thus make us empathize with Ishtar deciding to stand by him, but they don't give us anything. They want us to feel bad for him because he's possessed, but you can't just say that and magically make a character complex and interesting. In just a game prior to FE4, Hardin was possessed, but you had all of FE1 to bond with him and like him as a unit, thus making you sympathize with his possession. Leon has all kinds of scenes in Sacred Stones showing how he was like before he turned evil. These games made it clear that these people used to be people, so you hurt more when they inevitably have to die. Julius gets none of that. Because of that, I don't know why Ishtar is in love with him, and by extension, I don't care that she's in love with him. The game shows that, yes, she goes behind Julius's back to help try and save the children, but then she still goes back to him and fights with him, and I can't be asked to care. I don't have a reason to, because FE4 really likes not showing these things. Sometimes it works. Like, I can believe Arvis, in spite of everything, was a good father to Julia and Julius, because there's enough information to go on based off of what we have on Arvis. Julius doesn't have that, so Ishtar's love for him isn't compelling at all to me. There's only one angle to Ishtar that I actually think is kind of neat, and that's her mother, Hilda. Hilda is the most evil woman in Fire Emblem 4, arguably the most evil woman in the franchise, and there's a scene where it looks like she's pressuring Ishtar to get married to Julius. And if that was the angle that they went with, I think Ishtar could have been a fantastic character. She would have been easily sympathetic, because we've all been forced to do things by our parents, and it could make her a truly tragic figure when she has to be killed for it. And then when you kill Hilda, it could be all the more satisfying because Hilda is such a despicable piece of shit, even her daughter is a pawn to her. But that's only one scene, and other scenes clearly show that Ishtar is in love with Julius, so I don't really think that holds up. Ishtar could have been so much better, and honestly Julius as well, if they just showed us anything. A memory prism like in Fire Emblem Echoes, or some scene where he's himself, but that never happens. If you want to feel bad for Julius and Ishtar, Fire Emblem 4 is just asking you, please trust me, and I don't think it works. If you want to make a sympathetic villain, you need to try a little harder than just slapping a sad story on them. You need to actually think about how that sad story interacts with the world around them, and whether or not it doesn't exactly justify the character, but makes the character make sense. I think Julius is just too blatantly evil to make any amount of sympathy for Ishtar work. But Ishtar clearly has a lot of fans, even if I personally don't get it. Hell, if you think you know what I'm missing, please tell me in the comments. I'd love to hear it, because this is one of those things in Fire Emblem that everyone loves that I just don't get at all. So there you go. 2 out of 3, I think that's pretty good. Now there are plenty of other lady villains that may or may not fall into this. Aversa kinda does, but also doesn't. Sonya kinda does, and also doesn't. Celestia kinda, you see what I'm saying here. But that doesn't mean this trope is bad just because it's used a lot. Though I am glad that there are villains like Rhea and Edelgard and Petrine, who are their own brand of antagonist without needing a man to fall back on. They're just interesting characters in their own right. Be they sympathetic, morally gray, or just plain unpleasant. I'm looking forward to what the next Fire Emblem game does with its villains, ladies or not, because I think Fire Emblem villains are typically some of the best characters in their games. Well, I think it's about time I go die a brutal death to all the Ishtar fans. It's been a good run, 27 years of life ain't too bad. Please, just say something nice at my funeral. Wait, before I die, I need to let the spirit of capitalism surge through me one more time. I have both a Twitter and a Discord that you can follow and join. The links to both will be in the description. You can go there for updates or just to see whatever insane opinions come out of my mouth. And I also have a Patreon, where for as little as $3 a month, you can help support the channel. The link is in the description below, and you can help join the likes of Adebayo Thompson, Andrew Crockett, Bean Juice, Benz Again, Dr. McBackstab, Great Riek, Hell on Heelys, Ichigo D. Camus, Jaeger, Guts, Kenpachi, Hiro, Uzumaki, Kira, Yamato, Kratos, Charanzel, Frederick, Sirius, Balsara, Hakuman, The White Void, Justpacito 2, Lysevening Pulp, Marth the Valiant War Criminal, Morga Lorgan, Played Arrow, Ranger Man Sam, Shen Lu, The Fool, the world's most unironic 8.5 tail stand, Walmart Greeter, Your Girl Owen, Nintendo 11, Drew Hack, Fire Emblem Lord, Ginger, Goo Goo Gaga, Cornelia Milkers 92, Maple Knight, and Upscale Furry Trash. Thank you all for your continued support, and now I will depart. Thank you very much.